So now we are going to talk about antisaccades. As I mentioned before, antisaccades are slower than prosaccades. An antisaccade is basically, it's a movement in the opposite direction of a stimulus. So if I were to use my thumbs and I went like this, naturally something moves over here, you want to look at it. Well, you have to train yourself to look in the exact opposite direction, the exact same distance mirrored to where that target is. Okay? And so this antisaccades are considered to be, it's considered to be normal if you're, from testing purposes, if you're testing someone to make errors. 1 out of 4, 25% is considered normal. Now, ideal is no errors. That's where I want everybody to be, is that they don't get them wrong. And the ability to perform this task generally really develops at its fullest in adolescence. So if you've got a 5-year-old, and I had one actually this past week, where you want to do antisaccades with, it's going to be very difficult for them, but not impossible. And I don't think we should shy away from using that exercise because it could be so powerful. In this particular case, I had a 5-year-old patient who was here for attention deficit at 5. And so I knew for sure that I was going to add that in somewhere because it's one of those exercises that's so beneficial for the ADHD population. So with this particular patient at age 5, when we would do this initially, this was a game. Okay, we made it a game. You want to make it fun. You want to make it interesting. It was a game of 10. If she got it right, she got a point. If I got it right, I got a point. And I want her to win every time. So sometimes if I've got to purposely forget to mark the ones that I get right, I do it. I want her to win because you want this to be exciting for them. And so what we would do is I would say, look away from the one that I move. So don't look at the one that I move, look in the opposite direction and then come back at me. And what she would do initially is she would try to move her eyes and she couldn't do it. And so she would have to move her head and then come back. Okay, she had a lot of head movement. That system is nowhere near mature yet. And the mom was asking me, is that okay? Is there something wrong? And of course the chin moves, the mouth moves, and everything goes. And she tries to get there and try to recruit everything to help the eyes. Well, in a span of 3 weeks, I saw her 3 days a week for 3 weeks. She did exercises at home. This was one of them. We did other things too. By the end, she could go straight 10 times with her head still, because I actually had her mom stabilize her head. Okay, we need to have that extra help initially. But by the end, she would always get him right 100% all the time, straight through. And it was her favorite part of coming into the office. She wanted to do this game. And what an amazing change this little girl had, doing these exercises at home, doing them in the office. I can share a story too with my son, who just went through a phase where he was just constantly touching his mouth, fingers in the mouth all the time at age 5 or 6. And it was just getting so significant that he was just constantly licking his fingers. And this is the exercise that knocked that out. And what we would do is anytime I'd catch him doing it, I'd just make him stop, pull 2 chairs, we'd sit down and we'd do this game. And he actually really loved the game. He wanted to win, And it works well for the kids that really want to win. And what we found is because he also associated that game with this constant touching of his mouth, I must have done it not even 10 times in total, and it ended it. It just has not come back. And I would just do it whenever I'd notice them, so we didn't just kind of pick it up and do it regularly. That's probably the best thing to do. So, but just so you know, that's how powerful and effective this is. So, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and the frontal lobes are engaged in this exercise. So this is it's one of those executive exercises. You can use it even for cases where you want to exercise those executive functions. I've used this exercise a lot on some older patients that have problem with memory. Of course, I do memory exercises, but I do volitional saccades, I do antisaccades, and I just kind of roll through all those memory saccades, and that's just their training. They're training their brain, and it makes a big difference. And so I've had good success with that. So in our app, the Focus Builder app, you go to Antisaccades and Settings. And in here you have a lot of different options. I'm going to show you what I use the most. First of all, I like to use the red color, gray background, and I want to make sure the image is big enough so that they can see it in their peripheral vision. So going bigger is totally good and fine here. You can set the amount of repetitions. Let's just make it 10 for now. I don't know why 40 to 60 is one of those numbers that I use a lot for people who just do this for training purposes, somewhere in that range, and I'll have them do 2 or 3 sets like that. And go no-go feature, we're just going to keep it off. I'm going to tell you exactly what that's for in just a moment. But first I want to show you just the easiest version. Now, left to right blanks is how many you're going to get on each side. If you want more to one side than the other, you can change that. Honestly, I never use this. For me, I keep it on 5 to 5. But you can change the ratios like that. 5 to 5 is what I use. And go no-go off. All right, perfect. Number of dots, 2. I almost always use 2. What that means is that there's always going to be the center dot and 1 dot on the side that will appear. But the center dot will always stay. If I go to 1, that center dot disappears when the lateral dot appears. That's harder because you lose fixation and your eyes are attracted to where that target appears even more so. 3 dots, I actually never use that one. But that's the easiest one. I may find that I might need to do it. 3 dots is kind of like here. There's a target here, there's a target there. This one moves, this one doesn't. That's what it is. Whereas a target appears here, or a target appears there, but there's always that center fixation. That's 2 dots. All right, so let's start with 3 so you can see what that looks like. 2-second interval is really good for most people. We have some elite athletes. They're going to use all the way down to half a second. That is crazy fast. Crazy, crazy, crazy fast. We have a professional goaltender in Canada that does that, and what he does is he nails it. He just doesn't get him wrong, but he's really training his ability to look away and controlling his visual field, and he wants that super high speed. Oh, we're not going to do that one. 2 seconds. 2 seconds is good. 2 to 3 seconds. And in the distance, the further apart they are, it's a little bit harder to pick them out in your visual field. If they're closer, it's a little bit easier. So we'll use, we'll use 2. 2 and 3 is usually what I use most of the time. Depends on the size of your device too. And so what you got to do here is look at the center, and when a dot flashes, you want to look at the other one and then go back to center. Okay? That's what you do. Now the feature that I use the most is 2. 2 targets. So you look in the center, it appears, you go to the mirror, the true mirror location. There's nothing there. So it's a little bit harder, but you got to go to the mirror location of that target. Okay? Now if that gets too easy, then we want to make it a little harder. We can add a go no-go feature. This go no-go feature, you can use images or shapes, characters or colors. So if it's anything other than the red dot, if it's a different color, or if I'm using shapes here, then if it's something other than the red dot, you keep your eyes fixed in the middle. You don't look away. Okay? So here, my eyes would look in the center, And if it's a different shape like that, I stay in the center. And if it's a red circle, I look away and back to center. Look away, back to center. Look away, back to center. Okay, stay here. Away and back to center. Okay, and so on. That makes it even harder. So if this becomes too easy for your patient, then what you can do is bring it down to one target at a time. You can even make the time interval go faster to 1 second. But let's just keep it like that. We'll just change one feature at a time. We look in the center, target appears, you go away from it and back to center. Whoop, see, this was a different shape. So in that case, we want to stay in the center, even though the target disappeared. Let me just make another change before I show you that one a little bit longer. Instead of shapes, let's just make it characters. And you can load your own image. You can put a picture of yourself in there. You say, whenever the picture appears, don't look at it. And the cool thing about that is that if you put a picture of something that they really like, it makes it even harder to not look at. If they don't know what the picture is and they really like it, that's even better. Because they don't know what it's going to be, and then it appears and they're like, oh, I wonder what that is, but you have to look away. Okay? So you can find all sorts of ways, and if you use the pictures, definitely use the larger size target. So in this case, you look in the center and look away and back to center. Away and back to center. Football appeared, we stay in the middle. Away, back to center. Whoa, baseball. We want to stay in the middle, okay? So those are amazing executive exercises. Now, I want to share one other really great case. I've got a patient that has severe allodynia. I actually meant to share that case in our previous seminar and I didn't get around to it. I'll cover it a little bit more in depth in our next seminar this year. But basically this person, I can ask her to imagine herself walking down the street and she's going to feel the pain, just thinking about it. This person, when I first saw her, I knew right off the bat that I wouldn't be touching her. So I figured, let me use some laser. I used a laser on her. It was turned off. And I was lasering her leg while it was turned off. And seconds into it, she started screaming, ow, 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 ow. She said, stop, 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 stop. Too much, too much. And I looked at her, I said, it's not even turned on. And this was a test for me. I wanted to see what's happening in her brain. Not only is her ability to inhibit pain completely shot, but just a simple thought of doing things is causing pain. A lot of retraining to do here, but we're not going to do anything, especially initially, that are going to involve body movement and physical exercises. We want to build up the brain and build up the brain's ability to inhibit pain without having to use the body, okay? And so in this case, of course, I've got some great advice from another clinician on this case who said, you must make it clear to the patient we cannot talk about pain, because anytime you focus on pain, you think about it, you talk about it, you're building endurance for the pain. We want to break down that endurance, build endurance against it. Cool thing is with when you activate the cortex, when you activate the different parts of our brainstem, we activate pain inhibitory centers, that PMRF and the periaqueductal gray in the midbrain. We inhibit pain by doing these exercises. These eye movement exercises are very strong and effective exercises at building up our defenses against pain. And so that's what I would do with this patient. I go through pursuits first. I go through saccades. I go through antisaccades, memory saccades. We do all of those things. And we would not talk about pain. And we do that day after day, week after week. And I would also start encouraging her to imagine herself doing things. And I really literally had to spend 15, 20 minutes laying out the scene for her. I'd have her close her eyes and I would say, okay, now you're walking down the street. Yes, it's painful. You can feel the pain, it's there. But you know that that pain is an error signal. It's not true. It's not actually, you're not causing any harm to your body as we're doing this. And so she would have to recognize that this pain is an error signal. And when she finally got it, and I tell you, I had to do this dozens of times to get to a point where she wouldn't come in and just talk about her pain, and where she wouldn't come in and complain about pain as I'm talking her through imagining doing things. So now we're at a point where we're doing physical things. We're integrating physical exercise, and you have to start with isometrics, because an isometric exercise is an exercise where you're engaging muscles, but you're not actually moving your limb. So you can't create harm. And she understood that. And initially she could do something for a second, once or twice. Now we're doing sets of 10, and we're doing all the proximal joints and some of the distal joints, and we're doing the neck now, we're doing the spine. And now we're able to do things like repositioning maneuvers and vestibular strategies, and her life is being restored. And so these antisaccades were part of that concoction of exercises, and they're very beneficial. And I would do them on the horizontal, I would do them on the vertical plane as well. I did them in every way. I just wanted to just activate those brain centers. That covers antisaccades, and I hope that you find that very helpful. If I just quickly scan through this, I think we covered all of it. So yeah, antisaccades.